Thanks so much for joining us this evening. I'm Roxy, and of course, this is the Truth Denied Talk Radio, hosted by Revolution Radio. And hello, everybody in the chat room. You know, this is going to be a very important show this evening. I'm very privileged and honored to have our guest, and she has actually been a facilitator for myself, really hooked me up with a few people as well. And she has a really important message for the majority of people who are going to be listening tonight. I get a lot of emails from all of you and from our readers. And a lot of you ask me, and from Facebook as well, and you always want to participate in something. You want to be part of something. You are so kind. You always ask what you can do to help. And as I've said for over the years, whatever you can do. And so some people want to volunteer technically with us, and some people are good at writing, so they want to, write an article for us. Or some people want to download pamphlets of the number of topics that we have to educate individuals out there. There's a number of ways, and my guest this evening has yet another way, and I think it's so important because I think that she's speaking to the masses when it comes to a particular way in which we can all participate at the end of the day in A, unifying the planet, B, accessing our own empowerment or our own messages, if you will, from beyond. We all are capable of doing this, and we're all so instrumental with humanity rising up, if you will, or activating or evolving, whatever it is. We all are in this together, and I think that some of you who write in don't realize that, how much your presence in the world really matters to all of us. So I just want to put that out there right now before I invite her on. Let me tell you a little bit about my guest, Mia.Feroleto. She's a well-known art advisor, and we all love art, right? And she's an activist and an artist who lives in New York State. She was the creator of Art Walk New York. Isn't that incredible? If you know anything about Art Walk New York, she was the creator of this, and now a national event that opens well-known artist studios to the public to raise money for the Coalition for the Homeless and other causes. And Mia is a committed animal rights and animal welfare proponent. She is determined to maximize visibility for the arts and cultural world, and is currently developing the Adopt an Artist program to send artists to destinations around the globe in order to create art. Shamanic work, Reiki, and other healing modalities are incorporated into Mia's work with artists and animals. Her goal is to focus the public's attention on the crucial need to provide unwanted animals with safe, healthy, and loving homes. And she was blessed to live in the country with a pack of 6 dogs, all rescues, and horses and 3 cats, where she learned that the intersection of art, nature, and animals opens each of us to the divine and our own spiritual nature. Her stories are amazing. I've read quite a few. We've been emailing back and forth. The emails that I actually do get from Mia, as you all know, we've had a great impact on our website's emails. We just, sometimes we even get your emails a month later. Sometimes we never even get them. But just keep trying to reach out. Mia also believes that we all have the capacity to connect to other dimensions and higher realms of thought. Like any muscle, the skill's not developed unless used. So being able to access information and healing energies from the dimensions will be explored in our talk tonight. And Mia will also share some personal experiences and examples of how the spiritual is at work within her own life and how she helps facilitate others to develop these skills within themselves. And a point of focus will be on how to feel empowered to participate more fully in your own life while making a contribution to the world as a whole by following the prompts our higher herself provides on a daily basis. This is a much-needed show, and I really look forward to exploring the world from Mia's eyes. Welcome to the show, Mia.Feroleto. It's so nice of you to be here, and thanks for coming.
Oh, Roxy, thank you so much. It's so great to be here with you, and I've enjoyed listening to your programs tremendously. You do such a service providing all these different perspectives, and, thank you.
Sure, no problem. One thing that really I wanted to talk about real quickly, and for anybody who wants to see these pictures, just go to the schedule show or the front page of thetruthDenied.com and take a look at some of the photos with Mia with her dogs, and then of course the artwork that was provided for our poster, actually, that Mia lent to us by an artist who created it by the name of Erica Harris, and it's such a cute picture of you and your dogs, and she's just a specially gifted artist. Can we talk about her for just a moment? How did you get her to do that wonderful painting or drawing?
Interestingly enough, she did that intuitively with no photos. She read one of my children's stories. I've written a series of 6 stories, one based on the life of each of the dogs, and called the Furry Feroletos. And Erica read Jasper's story. Jasper was the first of the 6. And she was able to create that simply from reading the story.
You're giving me goosebumps.
Understanding.
Because it's your dogs.
It is my dogs. And what's so interesting is she got their personalities completely, as well as tapping into, some things about me as well. And, I was just amazed when I saw that for the first time. Erica lives in Brooklyn, New York, and she does these amazing collages using a variety of materials, including antique magazines. And if you go to the Etsy site, etsy.com, it's a site where artists can sell their own work without a middleman. And pay through PayPal. You can see a range of Erica's wonderful art.
Oh, wow. And that's ETSI.com?
ETSY.com.
Y.com. Okay. Wow. Okay. That's good to know. And, just on the idea of what you're doing with animals as well, where did that begin for you? Have you always had an affinity for animals and then decided to sort of just get involved in helping animals, or did an animal come to you and then it was all over, picked you and the forever home, and then now you're just in it for, life? How did that happen for you?
As long as I can remember, I've been connected to animals, and as a child, I'm one of 5 kids. Somebody would bring home a stray, dog or cat or duck or whatever, and they would just always bond with me. We had a baby duck that imprinted with me and followed me all around the house and snuggled in my white bathrobe, and I just always had a special connection to them. But I lived in Manhattan for 18 years and had an amazing cat named Lily, who was really my spiritual teacher and superior, and she was kind of like the great taskmaster in my life. And we moved to the country after 18 years, and my goal was always to have enough property to have horses and have a number of dogs. And Lily and I moved to this place in Columbia County that had almost 20 acres, and the land trust in the area considered it to be the most important property around, because all of the streams and tributaries fed through it. There was a blue heron rookery a few miles down the road, and I had a spring-fed pond in the backyard, and the herons would come and fish every day, and a huge beaver colony across the road, and the mother beavers would let me get within 5 or 6 feet of the babies while they were eating by the side of the wetlands. And I just had these, extraordinary experiences with animals there. But, everything just kind of fed through this property. And, the bears would come out. At one point, the 6 dogs had treed 2 adolescent bears, and that was quite an experience, trying to get the dogs up to the house again so the bears would leave. I just kind of found my element in that house. And the interesting thing, when I first bought it, a dowser told me that the house had been waiting for me to move into the 5th dimension. And that's really, what happened. Energetically, this system was created between myself, the animals, the house, and the elementals on the property. And we were in this system where, what I would think of would manifest, pretty much instantaneously. And we all have the power to manifest in our lives. It's that we're so caught up in this fear that we don't allow ourselves to have faith in that.
Yeah, there's a whole nother world to experience for so many, for all of us actually, and I completely agree with you. And it's we're so grounded in this density, if you will, and once we sort of take out of that sphere of density, there's just a whole nother world for us to experience. And I know a lot of people are experiencing it. Some people are aghast, what's happening to me? Other people are like, it's about darn time, and what have you. But just on point with the animals, do you think that animals are evolving too?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay, tell me about that. I'm prompted to just ask you that because I'm really feeling that from you.
It's absolutely true, and all you have to do is look at the stories on the internet in the past 10 years. I really feel that my gang and I and all of the people, around the planet who have this kind of relationship with animals have fostered that, including you with your kitties. And all you have to do is see the stories, read the stories, and I'll give you a couple of examples. One you can find on YouTube is about Lord Aspinall and Queeby, the gorilla, whom he had been raised in England at their gorilla sanctuary, and then reintroduced to the wilds of Africa. And he hadn't seen him in, I can't remember if it was 5 years, but an extended length of time. And Queeby had become aggressive with humans. Liz Pearson, the woman who ran the foundation in Africa, and others had tried to connect with him, and he wanted no part of them. So Lord Aspinall and his brother and a couple of workers at the foundation had gotten into this boat on a river in Africa. I don't know the name of it. And they were going up and down the river for a couple of hours, and Aspinall was using his call to bring Queeby forward. And all of a sudden, this huge, beautiful male gorilla comes out of the jungle, and Aspinall gets out of the boat and sits down, and Queeby is sitting next to him and is starting to hold him. And what was interesting, Aspinall doesn't talk about this in the video, but you see an early clip of them together in England, and they do this game, like, they're both sitting down holding hands, and one leans back, and then the other leans back and pulls him forward. It's kind of like on a seesaw, but, there's no seesaw, it's just the two of you together playing. And it very much looks like he's trying to, get Aspinall's response to play the game. But he introduces them to his wives and his children. All the gorillas come out. And you just see the love coming from Queeby's eyes. It's absolutely extraordinary. And another one from last year that was incredibly powerful, I can't remember the man's name, but he's considered to be the elephant whisperer. He had taken rogue groups of elephants who were destroying towns and rehabilitated them, and he died a little over a year ago. And two separate herds of elephants came from miles and miles away upon his death to his camp. One herd came one day and the second herd the next. And they stayed for several days mourning his loss, and then they left, just as they came. So you recognize the morphogenic field, and how did they know he was gone? They felt the vibrations. They knew.
That's amazing, and you're correct. I've read and watched on YouTube so many stories that just absolutely blow my mind in animal behavior, what used to be the norm maybe even 20 years ago, and what is becoming the norm with like the guy that takes care of wolves. He's become part of the wolf pack, and
right.
how he and you just watch nervously as he has integrated, and now his wife is doing it too. And I don't remember any of these people's names, I'm sorry, because I just don't, and there's another guy who works with lions in Africa, and he's having the same thing. He's integrating into the pride, where 20 years ago you couldn't get that close in most cases, I must say.
Right.
When they're they're not in captivity. And there's so much more. And like you say, even with your own animals, like your animals and my animals, if you take the time, I know this for myself, it is when I take the time to integrate myself and have full respect with both my ferals. It is absolutely amazing what love does and respect does. Hi, I hear them. I hear your guys. Hi.
You'll probably hear them more than once. They're
fine. They're welcome to on the show every now and then. That's cool, man.
We just moved a couple weeks ago, and they're not used to being so.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. They'll be fine. We've had other people on that have quite a few dogs in a very small space, and they've come on and said hello, and then they sort of chill out for a little bit. But it's just the way it is. I mean, my own cat has a couple of times in the last 2 years. He never bothers me when I'm on the radio, but every now and then he wants to come on, and he'll come right up to the microphone and meow, and that's just meow, and that's it. He hasn't done it with you, Thomas. He'll do it. That's my producer. Everybody say hi to Thomas. So so the whole idea that we're all sort of evolving, that it's sort of there's a what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like it's all laid out for us. It's all here for us to evolve and take the time. Working with animals, I think, is absolutely extraordinary. So I want to commend you for your efforts and what you are able to do and what you're able to help for other animals and homeless animals, abused animals, etc. So much appreciation, much love to you, Mia, for doing that. It's a very important work that you're doing.
Well, it's been my greatest joy, and I assembled my animal family, all basically at the same time, and they're all kind of transitioning together. So the past year and a half I've had a lot of acceptance and loss in that area, but they come back and visit. They definitely come back and visit, and sometimes I can even see them. But in terms of that, because so many people have pets, your relationship with your animal or animals is an easy access into communicating with them and with your own intuitive and quote unquote animal nature. And animal communication now is very accepted, but your animals will communicate with you in pictures. And, for instance, my guys would send me images. I could ask them a particular question. One evening at this house in New York, I had 5 acres of invisible fencing down by the pond for the dogs, so they pretty much had free reign. And one night, Ruby came in without her invisible fence collar. So the next morning, I asked them where the Ruby's collar was, and I got a particular image of a particular tree, and I walked over to the tree, and lying there was the collar. And if you tune in, they'll tell you all kinds of things that can be quite surprising.
Now, would that be the guides are telling you this, or your actual animals are telling you?
No, the actual animals are telling me this. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I experienced the same thing, and I know a lot of people who do as well. And Mia, coming from you, it's wonderful because you work with animals, and I notice a lot of my friends who work with animals in rescue situations, they acquire this particular element as well. In communicating, right? You just start to communicate in a different language. It's just different language. Maybe we're not used to it, or very short, brief words. I've even had animals will tell you what their name is. If you find one, right? They'll say, "No, that's not my name.
That's not my name."
Right? That's not my name. This is my name, and you've got to listen to it because they are totally able to tell you what's going on.
Exactly.
And we just have to believe it. I think some people go through that crisis of, I think I'm just making this up in my head. You're not.
Well, it's learning to listen to your own intuition. When I was 19, I was tested at Columbia University for right left brain hemisphere activity. They were doing research at the time. And the researchers were so excited because out of anybody that they tested, my hemispheres were the most balanced. And it's funny because until I was 30 years old, I just assumed that everybody was this way. And I didn't understand until finally at 30, I got it, that everybody wasn't processing information the way I do. And I laughed reading Rudolf Steiner's biography because he realized the same thing when he turned 30.
And for those of you who are just tuning in, we're speaking with Mia.Feroleto and having a grand old time. We were just talking about animals and experiences in rescuing or communicating with animals and other dimensional attributes that go with that, some of the things that we get to learn. And you were just talking about, Mia, when you were tested, one thing that caught me, right and left brain activity, the hemisphere of the brain, and yours was balanced. What does that mean when it's balanced?
Well, I'm an artist also, and I also have, tremendous business skills, so I can move back and forth between, the intuitive, creative, and the more nuts and bolts, methods of reasoning, methods of using your brain. I have a Scorpio moon, and for those of you who know a little bit about astrology, I have Neptune conjunct my moon in the first house, which makes me really psychic. And I had been told that I was mediumistic, which I always thought, I'm not going to do that. And it's funny because it's just integrated into my life, using my intuition in that way. It's balancing, between that creative energy and being open, and then, being focused in terms of, analytic and
logic,
mathematic and logic, and those types of skills.
Sure, and balance is key. So, to have balance in your life in that area is probably really useful. I can tell you that much because we're all striving for balance. Um, you know, what um, for you, like you said earlier, that this was the norm, the way you communicated or accessed information. And then you discovered along the way that most people don't operate in the realms of communication or accessing information that you did. So from there, did that explain a lot to you?
Yes, it certainly did. Because, of course, it can be frustrating when you're trying to communicate something and someone's just not getting it. But even as a small child, it's interesting for people, to pay attention to their kids because, we'd be watching something on television, say a news story, and I'd say, oh, such and such is going to happen next week. And sure enough, it would happen. And my parents never really paid attention to it. But, it was just always active in my life. And I started to, when I started to paint, I mean, this is really kind of funny. My best friend in high school and I were supposed to hitchhike cross country. That was the big plan. And she wound up in an ashram in India, and I ended up going off to college. And I was going to study theater and communication arts and wanted to take a jewelry course, but you had to be an art major to take this jewelry course. So I signed up as a double major and ended up having my first one-person show in Soho my senior year of college, and my art was reviewed in the New York Times for a group show when I was 30. So I just, started painting, and painting released a great deal, energetically and emotionally.
Sure.
So I really encourage people to do something creative, whether it's gardening or cooking or writing or playing music, whatever it is, because it really, opens up those centers.
Yes. I'm not sure what's going on. She's there.
Okay.
Oh, are you there?
Yeah. Are you?
Yes.
Okay, we're just listening, saying, okay, I can't hear anything. No, sometimes we cut out, so I didn't know. Okay, so there's another aspect too with you were talking about being creative, and that's why the arts. I was born into the arts myself, and so musicians, the outside of the box people, so to speak.
Exactly.
Right, and not the 9-to-5ers necessarily, but the outside of the boxers, and this type of individual, the writers, the artists, the painters. You're absolutely right, Mia. I started painting about 6 years ago, and it releases something. And it was something I did when I was a child. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't good enough, so I didn't keep doing it. I went into music. But you just made such a profound statement, which is there are no rules. Whatever you enjoy, whether it be gardening or cooking or experimenting with painting the interior of your house even, or making jewelry, or the creative arts are a doorway, in my opinion, and I think you would totally agree, Mia, is that they're a doorway to that other dimension.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, based on experience, the more you can make space in your life to do these things, spend time with your animals, do something creative, allow yourself some downtime where you're just with yourself and able to listen to your own heart, you'll find that so many things will begin to open up. And the more you connect to yourself in this way, the more you'll see reflections of that in your external life, where you then become the center of your own solar system. You start to see, the synchronicities and events happening around you, as opposed to you just, responding to events in your life. And it's very funny. I really want to share a couple of exercises with your listeners, and that is, focus on the news, focus on your intention and your words, and realize the importance of both. People have loose lips and they don't understand, how powerful the spoken word is and how powerful your own intentions are. And, at certain points, I've had hilarious experiences because, I've said something and then it would manifest, virtually immediately or the next day. An example is one day my dogs were digging in the dirt and they were eating worms, and I jokingly said aloud, "My dogs are eating worms." And the next morning when I opened a new bag of dog food, it was full of worms.
Oh, God.
And
oh, God. And so it became literal.
It absolutely became literal, and it happens all the time. And the clearer you are, the more you can set these things in motion. One day, there was this massive tree that was part of overhanging this little path from the area where the house was down to the area where the pond was. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice, to open up that view and get rid of that limb? Well, the next day, a 20-foot massive limb was on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, be careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
Well, and it's interesting that you're talking about that because two things unfold, or a few things unfold. You start to recognize, like, I think that, there are some people that they would have said, oh, I wish that limb was down, and then the next day it blows down, and instead they complain, like, I can't believe that wind blew half that frickin' tree down, and not realizing that you were part of the synchronicity of that experience. And so there's that other where we're not really taking the we're not looking at it what it really is. Yeah,
the responsibility for our thoughts and words and actions. Absolutely.
And I think that's you're absolutely right. The spoken word's very powerful. Words are energetic, and how many of us have somebody told us something when we were 5, like told a little girl that she didn't look good in her pink dress. And how many of you would never, ever wear pink again because that person told you that when you were 5 years old? Words
Absolutely.
stick.
Absolutely.
So I completely agree. And then in our adulthood, in our maturity, I love what you said, to focus on everything that we're saying, because when we become more in tune or hyper aware or whatever you want to call it, then we do begin to connect the dots. And once we begin to connect the dots, we stop pointing at everything or everyone around us, and we start taking responsibility. And then it gets to be fun when you can actually manifest things that you really want in your life.
Exactly.
So I can dig what you're saying. I totally know where you're coming from. Another thing I wanted to mention, to you about, accessing these other dimensions, I think there's an attribute here as well, being you're an activist. I always say that activists are simply people who take action. That's all it means. I agree. Right?
That's all it means.
All it means is taking action. And taking action is sometimes really tough for people to do. You know what I mean? They're talking about something, but they never actually do it. So activism it shouldn't have any other connotation other than activity, taking action in some kind of activity. And
well, there's a trap, there's a trap getting caught into your thinking process. You have to learn to balance the thinking and the doing, because when you're thinking too much, you're stopping yourself from doing. So you have to be able to acknowledge when you're leaning too much in one direction and, release some of these ideas, make them happen.
Mm-hmm. I think so. And the component that I love, you said it earlier, of working with the animals. When you're an activist, you're selfless. you're giving back to the world. You're taking on something, and it is a fairly selfless activity, and it really reaps tenfold the rewards.
Well, I'm an Aquarian, so us Aquarians this is what we were born to do. Humanity as our thing and making a difference is vital, and it's really having an idea and seeing it come to fruition is, for me, the most important thing. It's where I get my satisfaction, and if you're listening to yourself, your guidance will give you the information that you need to take the next step. If you're not listening to yourself, you're not going to get anywhere, or you'll make it, 100 times harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, the denial is a very paralyzing stage to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are in denial, and I see more and more people waking up. I mean, I don't want to loosely use that word waking up, but I see more and more people becoming in tune, more and more people becoming a part of the whole as we traverse these amazing times. And speaking of these amazing times, how do you personally view the world right now? What's your experience with you, personally, and those that you surround yourself with? What's the feedback on that?
Well, I'm not a real believer in, December 2012. I think this knowledge has been around, for thousands of years. And I think, we all have had equal opportunity to avail ourselves of it. I do believe that we're expanding, the consciousness field, and that's great. But what I'm seeing at this moment in time anyway is that as consciousness is expanding, the fear is expanding also, and the need for control. And, people don't realize the service that the animals provide on this planet, because, they come in as loving beings, and many of them, live every moment of their lives in pain and horror with factory farming and, experimentation and the countless things that we do to them. God gave us dominion, but, that doesn't mean we need to treat them, like dirt. They have consciousness, they're evolving the same way we are, and, what we do to them diminishes our own light, whereas, their light is expanding. So it's all interconnected, and we cannot evolve until we understand how interdependent we are on every aspect of the planet. The plants, the minerals, Earth was perfect. It's man that is going in and destroying the balance.
Truly, truly. I mean, said well. And it's a rough time, I think, too, Mia, because those who are really, catching on, and there's a lot of individuals who have empathy, who have sympathy, who have great love for animals, plants, and other beings. And when they learn of these atrocities, it hurts them. It hurts me. It hurts you. What does one do with that emotion? Do you use it to fuel activism? Do you use it to it's got to be for something. Once we've got to get past it, because there are so many people who are absolutely horrified from anywhere from the poisoning of our planet, artificial weather, the poisoning of our food via GMOs. Of course, animal abuse is so big right now. I mean, domestic, and then there's farm animals and people who are starving their horses through these economic times and other animals. It goes on, and it looks. I mean, if you have to look at it, to know that it's there, and it's a horror movie. And then what do you do? How do you step back, and how do you adjust? How do you balance yourself, Mia, so that you can be a part of making changes?
When I know I need to take some time to myself and disconnect, I do. Otherwise, I'm, paying attention to everything that's going on around me within a given day. Mm-hmm. And if an opportunity arises for me to make a difference somehow, that's what I do. And, it seems crazy, but that's always been the way I've functioned. I mean, even living in New York, I would find myself, getting involved in situations just because I picked up information, about something that was about to happen. I mean, one example is I was waiting at the bus stop and I had a flash about, I was on Amsterdam Avenue and 110th Street, and I had this flash about a Volkswagen coming around the corner and hitting someone on a bicycle, an adolescent on a bicycle. And literally, a few moments later, the Volkswagen came speeding around the corner, and there was a kid on the bike, and I grabbed him and pulled him out of the way, or else he would have been hit by a car. Another example is this, I was on the bus going down Fifth Avenue, and it was a horrible, muggy, rainy day, and we were sardines in the bus, and anyone who's been in that situation knows how miserable it is, and you're inching your way because traffic is so horrible. And this guy got on the bus, and he started, torturing the poor bus driver, and I just tuned in and saw where this was headed. And as I got off the bus, I gave him my phone number, and I said, if you need a witness, to what has happened here, call me. And sure enough, this guy went after him, and he'd been a bus driver for over 20 years. He had 1 year left before retirement, and he'd been called up and was about to lose his job. And he called me one night, and I wrote a letter, and he kept his job. We see countless incidents every day that it's our choice whether or not we want to step out of our own comfort zone and perhaps help another person. And at this moment where things are the way they are in the world, we need to do those things more.
I agree with you, Mia. I don't, I think a lot like you. I don't know how, I can't wrap my mind around personally how people ignore that. There's a show, I don't know if you've seen it, and it's pretty funny. I've watched it a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. I don't remember the name of it. Maybe somebody can put it in the chat room for me. It's not important, but it's a show about, they set up like in a restaurant, a couple who's going to have an argument, and then everybody else that's in the restaurant is just normal patrons, of the restaurant. And basically, somebody will start abusing the other, like saying some really mean things, these two actors.
It's a reality show.
It is. And then they're filming it to see if any of the patrons of the restaurant or anybody sitting nearby, what are their reactions going to be? And some people just look away and look away and look away, and it is, so they escalate it, with the actors to see, what's it going to take for somebody to step in and say something. And it's a pretty interesting show because people will stop what they're doing, eating their own lunch, get up, and I think it's because our nature is we think we're interfering. We think that, like for you, trusting the vision that you had of the kid on the bike and the Volkswagen coming around the corner. And so you grab the kid, and sure enough, here comes the Volkswagen. I think that people are afraid to do these kinds of things because they think, well, God, what if I was wrong? And you pull the kid off the bike and nothing happens, and there is no Volkswagen, nothing's coming, and you're just standing there going, I'm sorry. So what do we do with that? I think that's I think that you mentioned this in some of the stuff that you sent me, that it's a muscle, and we have to practice. So is that all there is to it, you know?
The only time I get into trouble is when I don't listen to myself.
Oh, wow.
But really, and I work with artists as well, and I had written to you about one of the artists I was working with. When I first saw her work, I knew that she had that a soul piece had splintered off from a traumatic experience. I didn't know exactly what the experience was, but when I asked her about it, an art dealer who had been enthusiastic and taken her on, and then a few months later dumped her, and she didn't understand why, and a lot of negative things happened as a result of this because he shook her to the very core, and she dropped what was a really important element in her art making, and had been very deep in terms of what she was pursuing and communicating through her art, and her work became more superficial. And she developed sleeping problems, and for 6 or 7 years took sleeping pills because she couldn't sleep otherwise. And as soon as we started working together, I gave her 2 books on feng shui and got her to to focus on cleaning out her studio and releasing energy just within the space. And we started working together in the middle of May. By September, she started to have long bouts of being able to sleep without sleeping pills, and by December, she was completely medication-free. And she had reintegrated the elements in her work that she had let go of, and in fact, the art that she's making is more powerful than ever. So we also had a very profound experience. She and her family had gone off to Italy for 3 weeks, and the older daughter was going to camp last summer, and I had spoken to her the day after her family brought their older child to camp, and she was very upset because the diamond from her engagement ring had fallen out, and she thought it was in the bedroom, and they pulled apart the entire bedroom and couldn't find it, and it was not insured. And I said to her, the way things appear is not necessarily how they are. And when I went to Catholic grammar school, and the most valuable information that the nuns taught me was this little prayer, and it goes, "Little Jesus, lost and found, please bring my whatever around." And
yes, here we are. Okay, great. I had my mute button on, you see? You see how that goes? Even I do it. I was going to say, right when we first started the show, we were in the middle of a giant dust storm here in Arizona, so I can't see outside right now. It got dark. But anyway, not because the sun went down, because we had a big dust storm. So we're a little shaky on the air here, and I don't know what's going on. I'm getting some people who are posting on our Facebook wall saying that they can't log into the show and they can't seem to listen to the show. I'm not sure what's going on. So Thomas, I don't know if there is a problem over at Revolution Radio, or I have no idea what's going on. I don't know why they can't. I've never heard of this before. But Mia, you were just talking about this woman who, and the diamond, and it wasn't insured, and then we found ourselves in the middle of a commercial. So can you tell us the rest of the story?
Sure, absolutely. It's interesting
Cool.
You're having a dust storm because I've been having a major electrical storm here.
Yeah, my lights are twinkling in the house as well, and so I don't know what's going on here, but oh well.
So anyway, the diamond was gone, and I suggested that she call her daughter at camp to see if it was in with her clothes and so forth. And she didn't want to do that, and I kept getting, something about the car. And, obviously this was a very big loss. She'd worn it every day for 20 years, and I said to her, perhaps the message is that your art is your diamond. So this conversation was on a Sunday. Thursday night, I had a dream about her, and I picked up a diamond from the floor, and in the dream I handed it to her, and she had her ring on, and there was one diamond in the ring already, but there was an open setting that was spaced for a second diamond. And I handed her the diamond and said, "Your art is your second diamond. It is your second diamond." So that was Thursday night. This was really a total shamanic experience between the two of us. And I talked to her a few days later, and she told me that she'd picked up her daughter, and she'd been so busy that she left her daughter's belongings in the car for 3 days and was driving around with them. And after all of our conversations and a lot of self-reflection, she realized, in fact, that her art was more important to her, than the diamond. And when she was unpacking her daughter's suitcase, she got to the very bottom, and there, sitting in the middle of the suitcase, was the diamond.
Mm.
So what are the odds of something so small going off to summer camp for a week and coming back home again?
Oh, yeah, especially with, emptying suitcases out constantly when you're at camp. I mean, yeah, absolutely. What are the odds of it being in there? Sometimes I swear things get transported. They go through some kind of time-space continuum and show back up.
Right.
Right. And, similar. I have had so many similar things happen, and I know that the listening audience has as well. It's just, I think that we have to realize, too, like everything you're talking about, Mia, is that we're all capable. All we have to do is just pay attention and I think what an interesting analogy that you shared with her or helped her through to recognize her art. And I wanted to go back to the idea of the artist that you were talking about who sort of lost her via abuse, lost her real artistic quality, and then came back around and then even matured, even, or whatever you want to call it, even more from that point. Do you think that certain things happen in our lives sometimes so that we can grow, so that we do recognize the gifts that we all have?
Oh, absolutely. We're all here to learn. We're all here to learn. And no one said that everything was going to be hunky-dory 24/7. It's a matter of how you react, what you do with what happens to you. And, that's what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said, you come out polished or crumbled or whatever. You put, I think it was a diamond too. You put the diamond in the tumbler and it comes out, polished or destroyed. And, I've gone through, the whole gamut in terms of life experiences. And, I've considered all of them to be learning, and I wouldn't trade any of them because I see, where they were important for me in terms of my own understanding and, able to communicate what I've experienced, is just critical because that's, what I'm meant to do as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. What does somebody do, and what would you recommend in your experience? I think when things are going well in our lives, everything just unfolds, and we think that that's sort of, we're having a good string of days or weeks or months. But I think that where I see myself and those around me, it's when things start going wrong. It's when things start not coming together and stress starts to build. And when when I call it, when I'm in it. And when I'm in it, it's almost as if it's tunnel vision, sometimes obsession. A lot of people, we all go through it. What do you suggest to any of us when you're in the middle of that place that you can't see, you can't make out what's ahead, and you're just sort of stuck in that place, what would be a good practice to try to at least remember to do when you're in that place?
To simply disengage. These things happen. I mean, think about an event in your life, that at the moment seemed overwhelming and enormous, and then a week later, it's as if it never happened.
I know.
Disengage. We turn, mountains or molehills into mountains, but the important thing is to realize when you're getting into a place like that and communicate with your animals, go out in nature, let it go, because we are not in control. We are cooperating. We are cooperating with divine energy, and we need to get out of our own way. And, very little good can come from obsessing over anything. For the most part, you wind up destroying, what you hold dear. What the value, you squeeze the value out of whatever it is, once you've analyzed it to death or, fretted over it. And, that's the thing about animals. They live in the present. They live in the moment. They don't hold on to stuff. And, that's the way we're meant to be. That's the way we're meant to live. Kierkegaard talks about you can't access the divine without faith. Faith is the key to open the door for all of these possibilities to happen. And, we live in an abundant universe. These things are there for us. I mean, there were times when I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, but whatever I needed each and every day was provided. And, whether that meant having total strangers show up with truckloads of hay multiple times for me to feed my horses or whatever, it always just showed up. And I never question that because I know it's real and I know I can count on it.
See, that's very interesting that you just said that. And I'm sure, like you said, when you have no money and you've got no hay and you've got horses to feed, I'm one, would be a stress case. I would be rolling backward in the wrong direction, envisioning my horses dying, envisioning, oh my God, somebody needs to help me. And believe me, I've done this over, you know what I mean, in my life, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, until you snap out of it. And when you snap out of it, like what you just said, because you almost expect the miracle, it's available to you, so you count on abundance. You have faith in abundance. And sure enough, because of that belief system, Mia, the hay shows up.
Well, our big thing is
to that.
Oh, well, we should ask for what we need.
Oh.
We should ask the universe for what we need. One example, another example. I mean, I could go on forever with examples.
Oh, I love it. I think you need to.
But I was living in Manhattan and tallied up all the bills, and realized that to make things comfortable, I needed another $5,000, and I got into bed and asked for $5,000. And I walked into the president of my then client's office, and the president said, this is the next day, the very next day, you're doing such a good job, we've decided to pay you another $5,000.
Oh, crazy.
It's real. I mean...
It is. Of course it's real. Now, what do others who are around you who see this happening, do they think that it's just you, that you've got that silver spoon, you've got the magic, it doesn't happen to the rest of us, it only happens to Mia?
No, the people that I'm close to, understand to I mean, we're all at the place we're at, Yeah. But many of the people that I know manifest, pretty easily. I just, this is really one of the things that I want to stress to your listeners is to practice, Don't take my word for it. Put it to the test in your own lives. I mean, focus on headlines in the news and focus your intent and envision, the outcome for the greater good of everyone and see what happens. See how consistent you are. Ask, for guidance. Ask for specific material things that you need in your life. And have faith and see. I mean, my artist had her two youngest little girls, running around saying, the prayer's not working, the prayer's not working, the prayer's not working, multiple times a day. And, it really does work. I mean, I've told that prayer to people who are total atheists, and they've used it, and something that they've been looking for, would suddenly materialize.
Sure.
This is the world we're supposed to have, Roxy. We're not supposed to, be mired in wars and killing each other, and, we're supposed to create heaven on earth.
Well, I like what you said. We're not in control, and I've said this before myself. This is about cooperating. And there's a whole different energy, as you said, when we cooperate with one another, with everything around us, with all the energies around us, with everything that's available to us. And I do indeed, if indeed we are not supposed to be living in a war-like environment and killing and horror stories and people behaving like, I can't even say the word animal. I mean, in the old days, my parents used to say, oh, that person's behaving like an animal.
Right.
And now I can't even say that because animals behave better than, not even behave, but you know what I'm saying, better than some people that I've seen. But what I'm saying is that if indeed this is the world that we're supposed to have, how did it get so out of whack?
Well, man became egocentric and wanted to be the creator, not the co-creator. And we've become out of balance between, the patriarchal and the divine feminine, and the divine feminine is on the rise. But, the patriarchal society is trying to hold that back, as much as possible. But it's inevitable. It is inevitable.
Why do you think it's so important that the divine feminine, and I completely agree with you, by the way, that the divine feminine rises up? What's so important about that? And can you explain? Do males have a divine feminine as well?
We all do. We all have, male and female. The higher you go spiritually, the less gender is important. Mm-hmm. And this paradigm, this gender identification is such a trap. But again, many women, not all, don't feel comfortable or afraid to have their lifestyle rocked. They're afraid of what they can accomplish on their own because they've been quote unquote supported, for so many years. I mean, my parents got divorced after 25 years of marriage, and my mother got her law degree on Mother's Day the year she turned 60 and practiced in the juvenile court system in New Haven for 10 years and had 2 decisions named after her. So, it's all your attitude. It's all how you look at things that colors your world.
Sure. And as far as, back to that divine feminine as well, when I hear you say that, I hear, the caregiver, the feminine, the earth, who is the provider, and the divine feminine seems the feminine in us, in all of us, is more of a caregiver type energetic. It's all, we have the archetypes, which is what the divine feminine is, or the divine masculine, and all the archetypes. And once we break through, do you think, this whole paradigm, this whole polar opposites and division and all the rest, once we break through and become back into maybe some more balance, has the planet ever, been at a place like that ever in the past? Has the planet ever been balanced with humanity in the past? Do we have a goal that we're reaching for? Can we look at it from our past? Can we see a time where this actually did occur? Or are we creating a new shift here, a new experience?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because on a blog yesterday or the day before, I wrote exactly that perhaps there has never been a time in human history where there's been peace, where there's been no bloodshed, where we weren't at war or having, millions of abortions because people aren't practicing birth control, or euthanizing tens of millions of cats and dogs, and factory farming. Who is all this bloodletting feeding on, or, who benefits from all this bloodletting? But there is, even Ronald Reagan said it, that it would take, some force from beyond the planet to influence us in terms of working together. And, as I'm sure you know, and your listeners know too, we are not alone, and we are not alone here. And, if we are to travel in space, we have to have good manners and, stop this aggression. It's not going to serve us.
Right.
So
yeah, it is, in a matter of speaking, killing us to behave this way.
Oh, it's definitely killing us. I mean, what are the chemtrails? I know you're a big proponent of ending chemtrails, of course. Why are they, spraying us with all this stuff, for God's sake? It's just, when is enough enough? How much do these people want,
Mm-hmm.
There is enough on this planet for every single person to have their needs met. Why do we have to hoard? Why? It just makes no sense whatsoever. I've become a real letter writer, and I love to write, but in 2008 I wrote to Warren Buffett and suggested that, since we're at the brink of nuclear war, that he and George Soros and Bill Gates and people like them give away half of their wealth to charity to balance the wealth in the world. And by doing that, it would allow people the space to address their spiritual lives in whatever form that meant for them. And with the fall of Lehman Brothers, I wrote to him again and sent him the letter for a second time, and I basically said, what is it going to take for you guys to do something? And Stephanie Strom, a writer for the New York Times, in October of 2010, wrote about the fact that there are countless millionaires who are actually giving away money, whereas the billionaires' pledge, is a pledge. Bill Gates is in bed with Monsanto with his golden rice that it takes, you have to eat 16 pounds of it a day to get your daily requirement.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting all the praise for being so generous, yet there are countless people who are actually distributing, making donations and distributing funds who are not getting anywhere near, the attention and accolades. And I spoke to Stephanie about this when her article was, I called her the day her article was printed in the New York Times, and she said, it's very difficult to get these guys to fess up to anything. And you know, there certainly is a chance that I played a part in some small way in terms of influencing them. I suggested it several years before they actually did it. But the point is, release the money. There are people on this planet who need help. You have plenty.
I agree with you there, and it's just like the ratio at this point in this country. How many people are starving now?
Right.
And we've never, that's another one of my pet peeves. This is out there. It's outrageous to me in our country to have anybody, not a single person, starving, more or less children. And now there's a bunch of children's centers and children that are being fed by, people like you and me who put food together and put organizations together, can't even get their, nonprofit status because the government won't sign off for, a year or 2 or 3 on their nonprofit. So they just have to basically, people who don't have a lot of money are having to dedicate their lives and their time to getting, having little mini fundraisers, let's say, so that they could put food together for starving children in our country. So
right.
It's beyond, there's an obvious script here, and it's repeating itself over and over around the globe, and I think that, for this country, this is real trouble because to have starving children in our country, there's just enough. There's enough to not feed them. So you're absolutely right. And I think that they've already painted this story long ago about, the wealth, sharing the wealth with those who, they call it the have and the have-nots. But the way they present it, Mia, is just so lame. Lack of a better word here. Lame. That oh no, we don't, whenever they're trying to do it with taxes and tax the wealth a little bit heftier or this or that, it always comes out in the media that, oh, we can't go there, that's communism, or we can't go there, that's socialism, that doesn't work, or we can't go there because that's dictatorship, or da-da-da-da. The bottom line is, when you're a billionaire like Buffett, when you're the richest man in the world like Gates, when you're one of the richest men in the world like Soros and countless other billionaires, and you can't give back to the world, something's wrong with that picture.
Well, look at Bill Gates and Microsoft for a moment. He's created a product that's basically obsolete the minute you put it into your computer. So you constantly have to upgrade to stay on top of the, newest programs and apps and blah, blah, blah. And, it's another example of the banking system and the way they've got us, by our short hairs. And, I love seeing what's happening in Egypt. I love the fact that people are taking to the streets and millions and millions of people, not here. And I think we've been dumbed down, as you know, our education system has been dumbed down. Our spiritual energy has been diverted. And I really, really, can't encourage people enough to spend time with themselves, and connect, because all the information you need is right inside of you. You can access it, by simply giving yourself a little time and space and turn off that internal dialogue, recognize how important your intentions are and how important your thoughts and words are, and just take it from there. Because you...
And welcome back, Friday evening. And I'm just wondering, I'm just thinking about this. Everybody, you're probably having a 4-day holiday weekend, hopefully, because yesterday was July 4th. It was fairly uneventful for me, but I don't know if I didn't even hear anyone on Facebook. I mean, you guys, really shout out all the stuff you're up to. I didn't hear a single person that did anything for July 4th, so I think that's really interesting. I don't know what that means, but back to what you were talking about, Mia. By the way, our guest is Mia.Feroleto, and of course, the conversation has been just down to earth, and then. All of us living on the planet right now, all the stuff that we go through, you said some fascinating things and just simple, you really keep it simple, don't you, Mia?
Well, it's not complex. I mean, that's really the interesting thing about it. It's not complex. We are the ones who make it complex.
Mm-hmm.
We are spiritual beings living in a physical body. That's who we are. We use such a small percentage of our brains and our abilities, and we're only limited by our own imaginations. People have seen things happen in my life that defy logic. I was driving in a car as a passenger, 7 years ago, and the man who was driving was going 40 miles an hour, and a baby deer ran out, and he hit it head on. It had a big gash in its forehead. It ran across the road and fell over, and we stopped, and I went over, and it was twitching, and John said, I'm going to go back and get my knife and put it out of its misery. And I immediately started working with it, praying and working with it. And John came back, and it appeared as if it was gone. It appeared to be dead. And I said to John, he's gone. And we stood there, just looking down at the body. And, a minute or so passed, and all of a sudden, he had no heartbeat. I picked him up. All of a sudden, he pops up, and he bounced like 15 feet away, stopped dead, and turned around and stared at me for probably 5 minutes. And, we got to my house. It was, the deer was basically saying, what just happened? And we get to my house, and John gets out of the car and gets back in again. He was just totally beside himself. And I saw him a couple of weeks later, and he said, what happened there? What was that all about? And I said, well, we tapped into the universal love that permeates, the universe, and, we helped him. And he said, did you see the mother deer standing watching all of this? And I said, no, I hadn't been aware that she was there. But, of course, she was there. He was probably a week or 10 days old. So, anything can happen if you allow yourself to be open to it. My dog Sammy, who was a rescue and completely feral when I got him, was so traumatized by his previous life that it took him a year to be relaxed enough to smile. And when he'd get really anxious, he'd chew a hot spot, on himself. And this one morning, all 6 of the dogs came in, and he had a hot spot on his hip that was the size of an apple and 2 layers deep into the skin. It was really just like raw meat. And I sat down and immediately started doing energy work with him. And by the next afternoon, it was the size of it was a little brown scab the size of a nickel.
Wow. And when you were working with him, just out of curiosity, because I'm really curious about this, did you pull energy or did you pull trauma from him or, just sort of try to give him some balance when you worked with him?
I basically just opened myself as a channel, bringing it in through my crown chakra and out through my hand. And I that particular time, I just had my right hand on his chest. And, we sat there doing this for about 20 minutes. And, Sammy was the most extraordinary dog. He understood when he needed energy, and he would come over and lie down and roll over and ask for it because he knew that he was getting anxious, and he would, come and ask me to do something about it. One of my favorite stories about him is we were, living at the house, and my friend David Lewis, who's an amazing animal communicator, who used to teach, I don't know if he's still doing it, with Penelope Smith, who developed animal communication, and he had come over to visit and had lunch and spent the afternoon with us, and I'd forgotten to tell him something, so we were on the phone, and the dogs were off the back deck, and I heard Sammy giving a correction to Fergus, who's the youngest and always in trouble. So I hung up the phone and ran outside, and Fergus had a paint turtle that he was about to eat. Mm-hmm. And Sammy had him pinned down and was telling him not to hurt the turtle. And what happened next was just extraordinary. Fergus picked up the turtle, ran 3 acres down to the pond, and put the turtle by the side of the water and ran back to the house.
Oh, my gosh. That's amazing. That's crazy cool. That's just so awesome. And I'm sure that people have experienced this in their own lives from, there's this, there is that, that we're told that animals do this, 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 and this. I have a real problem with it too, because my experience that I create with my animals, 9 out of 10 times is not the experience that the vet and even sometimes people who work with the animals are telling me I should be having. In other words, an experience that you just talked about, that certain things like that shouldn't be happening, that they don't think that far, that they don't think that big, that they don't, that Sammy couldn't have possibly saved it was Sammy, right, that saved the
Yeah, he told Fergus
turtle.
Not to hurt the turtle.
Right.
And if you knew Fergus, the idea that he would carry the turtle down to the pond and leave it there.
Right.
You would know how, outrageous it was. But Sammy was the Arnold Schwarzenegger in the group, and when Sammy said something, that was it.
Right. And it's such a beautiful thing. There are other beautiful stories like this, that countless on the internet. And I encourage people to go and look for them. Just search, anything with an animal that you want to see some beautiful story about. Because, and you said this earlier, it's profound that you're correct, that animals live in this moment. It's all they can afford to do. It's this moment. That's what they do. And when you work with animals, they actually make you work. They make you come into the moment as well, because that's what they're doing. They're in the moment. And if you don't mind, Mia, I've got a situation here where a feral showed up about 3 months ago. And everything I've been doing or wanting to do hasn't happened in the manner in which I've wanted to. It really has pushed me to limits to where even one weekend I was crying my eyeballs out because I couldn't get what I wanted to happen in my timeline and what I thought I needed. And it was very interesting because I work with a naturopath. Well, he's not really a naturopath. He's a biologist who's working with people on health and healing, and he's the real deal. And he said to me one day he said, "It sounds like you're holding back tears." And I said, "I am. I'm so frustrated. I can't get this to go to the next level. I need to go to the next level, and I can't seem to make it go to the next level." Noah is his name, the kitty, the feral, won't let me. And he said, "Is it possible, Roxy, that the kitty is there to slow you down?" Well, I got so mad when he said that. Because, see, I work and work and work around the clock 7 days a week. To where my own husband was saying, you have to get back in balance. You're out of balance. Well, lo and behold, another month went by since Dr. Will has told me this, that it's possible that the kitten has showed up to teach you something and to slow you down a bit. Well, what he has taught me is exactly that. He has taught me to slow down a little bit, a lot bit. And now that I'm working with him, he's requiring my attention at least 2 or 3 hours a day. in a 24-hour period.
That's
To which
great.
I'm right. He's requiring it, and he's communicating with me, and he's talking to me, and he trusts me, and we have, and then of course my indoor kitty is also experiencing something brand new because he's not socialized and he's 9. And Mia, I'm seeing something happen to my inside kitty, whose name is Harley, that I've never seen. So it's unfolding against my will. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm having this story that I'm watching and being a part of it's amazing. And I've really slowed down on my work. And guess what? All the work's getting done.
Right, of course.
Right?
Yes.
Oh.
You're clearer. You're energetically clearer. Your mind is clearer. The animals in our lives, the animals who come into our lives are the animals who are meant to be in our lives. So they're there for a specific purpose. They balance our energy. They do all kinds of things for us that we're not even aware of, including, by the way, taking on our illnesses. I mean, there's countless examples, even in Western medical literature, of animals and their owners developing the same illnesses at the same time, and the animal transitioning and the person surviving. And
yes,
it's what they do for us. They provide us with unconditional love. And my animals and I work together. We've consistently done healing work together. An example is a woman I knew who was giving a horseback riding lesson, and her little 14-year-old Cairn Terrier, Spencer, was run over by a truck by someone while she was giving the lesson, and she brought him to the vet, and he had a broken pelvis, and the vet didn't know if he was going to make it. So as soon as she got home, she called me, and I went over there, and she knew how to do Reiki, so we did energy work together, and he just laid there soaking it up. And by the time we were finished, he was able to stand. And she said the big concern is whether or not he's going to be able to pee and poop. And I said, by 9 o'clock tonight, he'll pee and poop. Sure enough, 9 o'clock, he's out there peeing and pooping. And it took him about a week to recover.
Unreal. But here I'm using the terminology unreal, and this couldn't be more real. So it's making use of what we've got, and hey, people who are listening, if you don't know Reiki and you want to learn about Reiki, I mean, there are so many teachers. People will teach Reiki to you for free. It's all it is guiding energy. I think it's amazing too, Mia, that the animals, I also Reiki my animals, and they ask for it. They know. They know what it is and they want it. It's soothing for them, and they expect it, and they communicate that to us. So we have to be able to recognize that as well. And I love what you said, that you work together with your animal. That is another thing. We work with animals as well that are having IBD issues and all this GMO food issues, and a lot of people write into us, and we help them through the process. And one of the things that we tell people or share with people is that your animal will work with you.
Absolutely.
You have to ask your animal, I told my animal, Harley, my pet kid, I don't even like saying animal, but he is an animal, but pet kid, one day, because he was sort of refusing. And then I sat down and I actually had a really good soul-to-soul talk with him. And I said, you need to participate. I can't do it all by myself. You need to help me, please. And he kind of put his head down, and then I started crying, and I said, are you wanting to leave the planet? Oh my gosh, is that what you want to do? And he sat up. So all of a sudden he just sat up and he looked at me and he said, are you crazy? You know, and I thought, I mean, he was like all depressed, and as soon as I said, "Oh my gosh, maybe I'm not getting the message," you want to leave the planet, don't you? But I went there. He was like, "Are you crazy? I'm not going anywhere." It's hilarious to watch them. And he said, "Okay, let's do Reiki. Let's do it." And he participated. And once he started to participate, he was on the mend. I don't know why he wouldn't have wanted to be. Maybe they're stubborn. I don't know. But it is interesting. Without words, like you said earlier, you have images, but without words, we get the messages, and we're not crazy. People, you're not crazy when you get messages about friends, about families, about animals, even plants. Plants will tell you what they need.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I've known to kill a few in my lifetime, house plants, and I felt horrible. But, after a while, now I've got what they call a green thumb, and I don't know how I got it, probably from spending lots of times outdoors with plants. But more so, what I'm saying and sharing with you, Mia, is I love your tenacity. What you say is simple. Watch your intentions, your thoughts, and your words. Pay attention. Take a break. Distance yourself from something when it's escalating. Rebound in balance. You keep it simple, and simple is what we all need. And you don't have any long, fancy words, and you have to turn to the east and say this, and then turn to the west and do this. I mean, you're talking about simple basics of cooperating and co-creating on the planet. And you're saying with much tenacity, hey man, it works.
Oh, it definitely works. It absolutely works.
And I can see where you're effective in your circles with people. I could just see you. You're probably, Mia, you're probably one of those people when I'm having one of those head spin days that would just say, okay, distance yourself. And right now I'm not going to talk to you because you're not distancing yourself. You're way deep in it. So I'll talk to you later. Click.
Actually, I don't do that. I generally let people do what they need to do.
Do their thing. And then observe. And you do, don't you? You help others.
I try, Roxy. I have a Scorpio moon and Mars and Saturn in Sagittarius, so I have plenty of fire as well. But for the most part, my personality is pretty even. But I say what I mean. I say what I think. I say what I mean. And I just feel, we have gotten away from all of that. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. We've developed all these neurotic tendencies, which, we certainly don't need. And they don't belong in our lives. What's happening is a reflection of this complication that we've allowed into our thought processes, and certainly the media and television and propaganda. You reach the point where you don't know who to believe, and the truth is, you need to believe yourself, because if you're connected, you will not lead yourself in the wrong direction. If you're connected, your instincts will tell you what's best for you, what to do, where to go, who to avoid.
Yeah. You have to trust yourself.
You really do.
You have to trust yourself. You have to learn to trust yourself. And if you have some kind of trauma in your life that broke down trust within yourself, then get the help you need. Get the help you need to begin to trust yourself again. Because when you do trust yourself, you're absolutely right. Then you can trust your instincts, and you can trust what you're hearing, feeling, seeing, and you don't need to look outside yourself to get the information. What you're saying, we've it seems like our society has turned into a bunch of hypocrites. It's like the hypocrisy is so big. It's like what you said, a couple minutes ago. We're smiling to the person, and then behind their back we're saying, well, I don't want to do this. And if you only realize that what you're doing is you're causing disease in your own self when you do that.
Exactly.
You're not being true to yourself. You're not being authentic to your being. It's all in. You got to bring it back home again. And clean up your own house, so to speak, and then try it again. But I think that a lot of people can just snap out of it. A lot of people ask me, I don't know if they ask you, Mia, but they'll say, well, what about this and what about that, and should I do this and should I do that? And I say, I don't know. What do you want to do? What do you feel like doing?
That's the appropriate response.
What do you feel like? Why am I the decider? I don't want to be the decider.
Right.
For that individual. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to be that person. You're accountable. What do you feel like doing? What's your passion? Where do you want to go? How do you want to express yourself? So there's so much more to this. And of course, Mia, we didn't even get to go into your ET encounters, which means we're going to have you back, and I want to talk to you more about all that stuff because it's all relative to the conversation. And we're at the end of the show. We've got like a minute to go.
Well, thank you so much, Roxy. This has been so much fun, really. It's been great.
I definitely, right on, Mia. It's fun having you on. I didn't know where we were going to go, but we just went wherever we wanted to go. If you want to get a hold of Mia, I've just had my webmaster link you up, Mia. So it's Mia.Feroleto@gmail.com for anybody. Mia said that we could give her email address over the air if you want to talk to her about anything, or reach out and talk to her about anything on the program. Mia does not have a website. Mia is one of the first people that I've ever had on the show. She does selling anything. She's just an animal rescuer, animal rights activist, artist. She represents artists, and we'll talk more about all of your artists next time you come back too, and some of the shows that you do throughout the years and what that means and translates to into the community too. We'll get into that much deeper as well. And this is the first time my audience has had the opportunity to meet you. So I'm really glad that we just got to sort of sit back and have a cup of tea and talk. Thank you so much, Roxy. It's been great. And I look forward to next time. I'd love to come back. Absolutely, and yeah, we'll get in deeper next time. And congratulations on your new move. And I'm really glad that your dogs said hello at the front of the program. And I thought that was very cool. They always do. And hopefully they'll we'll have a copy of the show for you. And an article, and you can play it back for your dogs so they can hear their voices over the air. You know what I mean? I think it'll be really cute. It's like, oh, you should hear. One time I had a rescuer on, and all the dogs, I said, oh, I love dogs, and I'm looking at all the photos of your dogs right now, and they're so beautiful. And they were all quiet and sleeping around her, and all of a sudden they all just started yelping and howling, and they heard you. They did. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. They were fast asleep. It's their evening nap. They had dinners. And I said, oh no, they always want to come on the show. And yes, they just want to let you know, like, yeah, we heard you, and then they go back to sleep and they go back to doing their little thing or go outside or whatever they do. And they don't show up anymore. And how she helps facilitate others to develop these skills within themselves. And a point of focus will be on how to feel empowered to participate more fully in your own life while making a contribution to the world as a whole by following the prompts our higher self provides on a daily basis. This is a much-needed show, and I really look forward to exploring the world from Mia's eyes. Welcome to the show, Mia.Feroleto. It's so nice of you to be here, and thanks for coming. Oh, Roxy, thank you so much. It's so great to be here with you, and I've enjoyed listening to your programs tremendously. You do such a service providing all these different perspectives, and, thank you. Sure, no problem. one thing that really I wanted to talk about real quickly, and for anybody who wants to see these pictures, just go to the schedule show or the front page of thetruthDenied.com and take a look at some of the photos with Mia with her dogs, and then of course the artwork that was provided for our poster, actually, that Mia lent to us by an artist who created it by the name of Erica Harris, and it's such a cute picture of you and your dogs, and she's just a specially gifted artist. Can we talk about her for just a moment? How did you get her to do that wonderful painting or drawing?
Interestingly enough, she did that intuitively with no photos. She read one of my children's stories. I've written a series of 6 stories, one based on the life of each of the dogs, and called the Furry Feroletos. And Erica read Jasper's story. Jasper was the first of the 6. And she was able to create that simply from reading the story.
You're giving me goosebumps.
Understanding.
It's your dog. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. I'm Roxy, and of course this is The Truth Denied Talk Radio, hosted by Revolution Radio. And hello everybody in the chat room. You know, this is going to be a very important show this evening. I'm very privileged and honored to have our guest, and she has actually been a facilitator for myself, really hooked me up with a few people as well. And she has a really important message for the majority of people who are going to be listening tonight. I get a lot of emails from all of you and from our readers. And a lot of you ask me, and from Facebook as well, and you always want to participate in something. You want to be part of something. You are so kind. You always ask what you can do to help. And as I've said for over the years, whatever you can do. And so some people want to volunteer technically with us, and some people are good at writing, so they want to, write an article for us. Or some people want to download pamphlets of the number of topics that we have to educate individuals out there. There's a number of ways, and my guest this evening has yet another way, and I think it's so important because I think that she's speaking to the masses when it comes to a particular way in which we can all participate at the end of the day in A, unifying the planet, B, accessing our own empowerment or our own messages, if you will, from beyond. We all are capable of doing this, and we're all so instrumental with humanity rising up, if you will, or activating or evolving, whatever it is. We all are in this together, and I think that some of you who write in don't realize that, how much your presence in the world really matters to all of us. So I just want to put that out.
It is my dogs, and what's so interesting is she got their personalities completely, as well as tapping into some things about me as well. And I was just amazed when I saw that for the first time. Erica lives in Brooklyn, New York, and she does these amazing collages using a variety of materials, including antique magazines. And if you go to the Etsy site, etsy.com, it's a site where artists can sell their own work without a middleman and pay through PayPal. You can see a range of Erica's wonderful art.
Oh, wow. And that's ETSI.com?
ETSY.com.
Y.com. Okay. Wow. Okay. That's good to know. And, just on the idea of what you're doing with where did that begin for you? Have you always had an affinity for animals and then decided to sort of just get involved in helping animals, or did an animal come to you and then it was all over, picked you and the forever home, and then now you're just in it for, life? How did that happen for you?
As long as I can remember, I've been connected to animals, and as a child, I'm one of five kids. Somebody would bring home a stray, dog or cat or duck or whatever, and they would just always bond with me. We had a baby duck that imprinted with me and followed me all around the house and snuggled in my white bathrobe, and I just always had a special connection to them. But I lived in Manhattan for 18 years and had an amazing cat named Lily, who was really my spiritual teacher and superior, and she was kind of like the great taskmaster in my life. And we moved to the country after 18 years, and my goal was always to have enough property to have horses and have a number of dogs. And Lily and I moved to this place in Columbia County that had almost 20 acres, and the land trust in the area considered it to be the most important property around, because all of the streams and tributaries fed through it. There was a blue heron rookery a few miles down the road, and I had a spring-fed pond in the backyard, and the herons would come and fish every day, and a huge beaver colony across the road, and the mother beavers would let me get within 5 or 6 feet of the babies while they were eating by the side of the wetlands. And I just had these, extraordinary experiences with animals there. But, everything just kind of fed through this property. And, the bears would come out. At one point, the 6 dogs had treed 2 adolescent bears, and that was quite an experience, trying to get the dogs up to the house again so the bears would leave. I just kind of found my element in that house. And the interesting thing, when I first bought it, a dowser told me that the house had been waiting for me to move into the 5th dimension. And that's really, what happened. Energetically, this system was created between myself, the animals, the house, and the elementals on the property. And we were in this system where, what I would think of would manifest, pretty much instantaneously. And we all have the power to manifest in our lives. It's that we're so
there right now. Before I invite her on, let me tell you a little bit about my guest, Mia.Feroleto. She's a well-known art advisor, and we all love art, right? And she's an activist and an artist who lives in New York State. She was the creator of Art Walk New York. Isn't that incredible? If you know anything about Art Walk New York, she was the creator of this, and now a national event that opens well-known artist studios to the public to raise money for the Coalition for the Homeless and other causes. And Mia is a committed animal rights and animal welfare proponent. She is determined to maximize visibility for the arts and cultural world, and is currently developing the Adopt an Artist program to send artists to destinations around the globe in order to create art. Shamanic work, Reiki, and other healing modalities are incorporated into Mia's work with artists and animals. Her goal is to focus the public's attention on the crucial need to provide unwanted animals with safe, healthy, and loving homes. And she was blessed to live in the country with a pack of 6 dogs, all rescues, and horses and 3 cats, where she learned that the intersection of art, nature, and animals opens each of us to the divine and our own spiritual nature. Her stories are amazing. I've read quite a few. We've been emailing back and forth. The emails that I actually do get from Mia, as you all know, we've had a great impact on our website's emails. We just, sometimes we even get your emails a month later. Sometimes we never even get them. But just keep trying to reach out. Mia also believes that we all have the capacity to connect to other dimensions and higher realms of thought. Like any muscle, the skill's not developed unless used. So being able to access information and healing energies from the dimensions will be explored in our talk tonight. And Mia will also share some personal experiences and examples of how the spiritual is at work within her own life